conditionings kick into rank 2 that you really start applying some pressure. Maybe GivePLZ can just get the ball rolling right out of the gate with an early push on the board. Because at that point, Mage can just struggle. If you can get Alan870806 / Troublemaker to give you lethal, things can start looking very nice. And as we can see for GivePLZ, Coin Neophyte Rakara is a very, very powerful early game.
That's just a curve. It might even be Playmaker before Rakara if he's greedy about it. But for Alan, this is also a curve, if you want to look at it that way. Turn 2 flow into Lunacy, into do broken things. That is if he does think starting flow is the way to go in this matchup. And I would assume it is, because I think that the early turns that you would potentially give up by going Lunacy first before flow might hurt you too much. Although in a Grand Slam, of course, still very powerful.
And I think GivePLZ 100%, as he did, should start with Cult Neophyte. As for the second 2-drop, I think things do get a little bit more interesting, because your opponent kept 2 cards. It's pretty likely that one of them is Incantus Flow at that point. And so going for the Cult Neophyte doesn't really disrupt them from doing that much. So maybe it's just Parade Leader on this turn and then save Neophyte for turn 4.
I can definitely see that. GivePLZ kept this with the curve in mind, but now that he has the potential to deviate, I am a bigger fan of the Parade Leader. Alan devolving onto the Neophyte here is just proof that he wants to take as little damage as possible in these early turns, because he's setting up for flow into Lunacy, and he knows that while devolving can be better in the late game against bigger minions, it's probably not worth it, because you want to play the Lunacy cards instead, and so might as well save the HP for now. That Dormant minion is not the best one to devolve into because it might be a pain later, but Alan is pretty much all in on the Lunacy game plan from here. Oh, wow.
Okay, we got a game on our hands now. Probably going deck and then Incantus Flow, but honestly, at this point, I think there's a really good reason or argument to just not play deck of Lunacy at all. Like, your deck is just insane already with double Incantus Flow.
I'm gonna disagree here. As much as I don't like Lunacy as a card, I think he kind of needs it from where the board state is at, which is he was already 2 minions behind on board, and now there's a Rakara as well. If he just goes flow into Cram Session, that complicates things, but I still think it's Lunacy.
I mean, I agree, but like if you just go Incantus Flow here and Cram Session, and then Springwater next turn, you have 3 draws at Flame Strike for 5 mana. Like, that just clears the board on the spot. It's obviously not especially likely, but I think it was very much worth considering.
True. Alan says, though, Lunacy is a bit too slow there. Didn't want to leave the Rakara on board, and that is perfectly reasonable. Now that he's picked up Devolving Missiles, he could potentially still do it next turn, but second Neophyte has something to say about that.
Oh, it's so huge. Yes, you have to deviate away from the bumper car, which means you're getting less benefit from the Parade Leader, but you get the same amount of attack on board anyway, and it just makes it so difficult for the Mage to answer this.
Missiles into second flow here. If he does go second flow, I think this is just not a Lunacy game anymore, because the 2 flow breakpoint makes it that you have all these 8 cost cards in the deck, which is the bad mana breakpoint. There's like Guardian Animals and a bunch of other garbage. GivePLZ is shaking his head. Second devolving was backbreaking here, and now Alan just has card draw into very, very powerful options.
Yeah, I mean, losing, what was it, all 3 targets being hit by the Devolving Missiles just so severely damaged the amount, or lowered the amount of damage he could put forward. But it's far from over yet. Even with GivePLZ putting a relatively low amount of attack on the board this turn, he has Weapon online next turn, Troublemaker on turn 8, Krastinov to upgrade the amount of damage that weapon can do. He is still all in on the pressure, burn, kill them on turn 8 plan.
Oh, man. Turn 8 is so far away for GivePLZ. Alan, I assume, is starting with Arcane Intellect here. Or not? I guess he's just going Ring Toss then. Fireball to corrupt it.
That makes sense. Obviously, Ice Barrier would be absolutely huge here.
Just not Entity, and you're fine. So between Counterspell and Portal, I do prefer the Counterspell because the thing you're afraid of here is conditioning / card draw, in which case you'd rather deny that than get a random 4-drop, I think. But these are not the great choices. Dark Moon Rider is coming back from Entity, but he was just not going to get any value off of the Rigged Fair game.
Yeah, I mean, there was, again, the other two were not good at all because he had Counterspell to deal with the spell before the Netherwind Portal would go off. And so maybe because Mirror Entity is so bad, GivePLZ will mess up somehow because you would never pick it here because you know that the Dark Moon Riders are in hand. There's some amount of mind games, but obviously in this instance, you do just still start Dark Moon Rider. And it's kind of good for GivePLZ because he just gets to go Krastenov as well.
Yeah, it's great. He gets to rush into something. It's actively bad for Alan to have a 1-1 here.
For a good time.
And he's under even more pressure than he was the turn before. I'm honestly not super sold on not starting that turn with card draw because he had 3 shots at it even if the first Arcane Intellect went off. Like, in terms of what secrets were good there, he obviously had conditioning in mind. That's why he wanted to look for Counterspell. But other than that, I don't know.
The GivePLZ there really believed that it was Oasis Ally. You kind of see him blinking in confusion as an Elemental didn't come out. Because if he went with Krastenov, there was no way to cleanly kill it off unless he tanked the weapon. I still kind of think it was better to just go Krastenov and point everything else face. And just allow that a Water Elemental goes onto the board. But either way.
Too. Alan starting with Ruined Orb in case he gets something like Shooting Star. It's also just free and he's probably not sending it anywhere else, but this is not a great Flame Strike.
I mean, it stops him from instantly dying. Like, it's something.
He's not instantly dead next turn. It's not Troublemaker yet, and there's no board space for Troublemaker. I don't think he Flame Strikes this. I think he keeps drawing. Okay, Alan.
I don't know. It's 5 damage you have to tank, or I guess 4 because he might have brain freezed anyway. It's close.
Yeah, he has been under pressure from the very start, to be fair, and he has consistently chosen to deal with the board instead of keeping to draw. In terms of approaching the matchup overall, he's obviously taken a control stance. There's just no way he's going to win on the burn game plan. And just not sure if it's better on average. And, like, I hardly ever question Alan, of course, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it might be too passive.
Well, I think for Alan, there might be more than a grain of salt in the near future because the Troublemaker follow-up for GivePLZ is huge, of course. He needs to clear off everything from this board to not just straight up die on the following turn.
GivePLZ is just concerned because this could still be rigged fair game from his perspective.
True.
Get the news that it's not, though, which means that he is mostly fine.
Well, no, he swung with the weapon on that turn, right?
Right?
Yeah. So it could be any of the spell ones plus rigged fair game still.
Okay. GivePLZ has also just consistently been positioning well against Combustion here.
Okay.
That's big.
This is good. He's got minions on the board as well, so Troublemaker far from guaranteed to go face either at this point. It's getting close, because of course as soon as Alan gains board control, Mask of Cthulhu, Apexis Blasts, Fireballs, like he is dealing a lot of damage in the next few turns. But GivePLZ is still just knocking on the door of lethal with potentially even Krastenov being the correct play on this turn instead of Troublemaker. He can push so much damage.
He can set up not yet two-turn lethal if it's just Krastenov, right? Because he gets to push 6, and then if the whole board gets cleared, then his next weapon swing is only dealing 4. So I still favor the Troublemaker. I just didn't know where the trades would go necessarily. As long as he sends some damage face to play around Rig Fair game, I'm happy with it.
This now means that if a minion sticks, GivePLZ wins the game with Krastenov to upgrade the weapon next turn. Obviously, Alan won't be necessarily playing around that, but it's very possible he ends the turn without a minion anyway.
So his out is to find the other Rigged Fair game and also clear this board, which is tough to do without Flame Strike. It has to begin with Arcane Intellect, though, no matter what happens, I think.
Yeah.
on to look for spell damage cheaply to go with the cram session. That's not it though. So I guess he's going to cram. If he hits spell damage, he can combust the 3 minions on the right and then devolve the Troublemaker. But then he still needs rigged fair game. I mean, ring toss from his perspective, not yet dead. If it's Alex, dead either way. So he's just trying to clear the board. But you're absolutely right. Because a minion sticks, that will just be it.
Yeah, probably the best play from Alan just because it does clear the board and mean that it has to be an extra point of damage. But GivePLZ knows that he is just creeping over the finish line. Alan was a turn away from stabilization there, I think, or at the very least from turning things around. GivePLZ would, of course, have Alex Straza, other Troublemaker, a couple of other outs to try and get there. But that was the final nail in the coffin. A tough pill to swallow for Alan because that win there would have been pretty big, in all honesty, with only Priest and Paladin left to try and counter the Mage. But in the end, it's a win with the Warrior, and it's a great start for GivePLZ.
Yeah. Very much so. The Warrior doesn't honestly have any terrible matchups left against Control Warlock. It has its teeth for sure. The build from Alan will definitely have some things to say about that. There's builds of Control Warlock which are heavily teched for Priest that aren't necessarily running both of the Cascading Disaster, and that would be kind of a disaster for Alan because he needs a lot of removal to get past it. But I'd have to imagine it's still the Q over Miracle Rogue.
Alan disagrees. It looks like he is going to be lining up the row. Oh no, sorry, incorrect. It is going to be the Warlock first. You are correct. The deck list tripped me up there. But like you say, the build of Warlock is, I think, going to be helping him somewhat in the matchup. It's still not great, but I will say that I think because we're not seeing ETC in the list for GivePLZ, it does neuter a lot of the potential burst damage after the big taunts come down in the late game. And so even though the Cult Neophytes can definitely help in the mid game to stop some of the removal coming down, the list from GivePLZ is not necessarily the most well-equipped to deal with the Warlock.
That's right, and the list from Alan is very cool, featuring Malygos the Spellweaver in order to draw all of the soul fragments that you shuffle into the deck throughout the early to mid game, which not only heals you a lot, those cards also draw into further cards from your deck. It's just a very, very cool combo, and because of that, he is running some additional fragment shufflers like Lucky Soul Hoarder that we don't see in every list. PRC's cut a Hysteria for it, and we're also not seeing any of those like Backfire or School Spirit, not School Spirits, the other card that draws you to demons in the list, which we might see from other Warlocks.
Right, yeah, has not been the most potent of cards, but overall just pretty standard stuff. And again, not a terrible matchup against Warrior whatsoever. The real thing that I think is starting to be missing from these Warlocks, that I actually kind of liked the direction that we were heading in, was the double Void Drinker that I think was very, very powerful at just locking down the board when you coined that out. One of the more powerful things that Warlock could do. And even the Ogremancers that are taking their spot in the deck is strong. Having a lot of extra removal cards, late game cards, doubling down on the power of the strongmans with the Twisting Nether is not necessarily something that I like in terms of the direction of the deck, at least for ladder. Maybe here in a last hero standing lineup, Alan has got himself something that he's a little bit more happy with.
Oh, it's another strong opening curve for GivePLZ. We saw how backbreaking the Cult Neophyte into Parade Leader, into Rakara was from Alan, forcing him to deviate from a Lunacy game plan. Maybe not quite so powerful against Warlock, which can just Soul Shear / Drain Soul some of those first few threats, but it's still strong overall because you'd have to assume Alan feels he's favored in the matchup, so GivePLZ might be taking some risks here. I'm interested in the Kargath. That gives him more value in the late game, which Alan might not necessarily be accounting for.
Am I allowed to suggest Rabbit? Like, if there was ever a matchup it was decent in, it's this one, right? If they go for your charge plus a couple of big strongmen, like, it can have insane utility later on.
Possibly, but it kind of feels like you're just losing by that point.
Yeah, maybe. I'm never allowed to have fun.
I mean, GivePLZ chose option C, and so we are both wrong, apparently. He just values raw stats right now, and fair play. It does present more damage if it is the play right here, but because it only has 4 health on it, after it VTs the Spirit Jailer, there's just so many spells from Alan that can cleanly take it out. This might just be called Neophyte, honestly, into a coin Sword Eater curve.
Yeah, it's just the prevalence of the 2-mana deal 3 cards that make everything else look so weak by comparison. Like, even if you go Neophyte and they do just kill it off, you then still have the Parade Leader to go with your Rakara later on.
I'm not too young to fight.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, this Rakara is still in that damage breakpoint that Drain Soul can deal, so I don't know. It feels like GivePLZ is just very keen about holding onto the coin here, you'd have to imagine, and values the Neophyte more than the Rakara in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't any specific breakpoints that you're playing around. Like, it plays around School Spirits, which didn't really matter at all on that turn. Whereas later on, if you're playing around the Twisting Nether on turn 8, is probably the breakpoint that you would imagine GivePLZ would be holding onto the Neophyte for. But again, despite the fact that I just was advocating for taking Darkmoon Rabbit, I think focusing on your early game plays and not worrying about the late game so much is probably still preferable.
But you can do both with Kargath at the cost of 1 attack.
True, yeah. I mean, yes, I was kind of memeing with Darkmoon Rabbit, but I do think that Kargath made a good amount of sense.
Well, GivePLZ did just rip the Outrider here, having seen already one of those 2-cost deal 3 spells, but Alan had the second one, so you see the quick shake of the head from GivePLZ here. It's back to the drawing board. Sword Eater, while it's on curve, you don't necessarily want to swing into a 1-1. You might just hold both weapon charges.
And a hand now for Alan that, as is so often the case with Corrupt, is going to take time to start really popping. Like, you can just play out the Lucky Soul Hoarder, of course, just to get some stats on the board. But this Ticketus, again, you obviously can play it to mill your own deck in this matchup. You don't need to destroy their deck. But the fact that you already have your charge in hand really does make you want to just save it so that you can play a 0-mana 8/8 later on when it's corrupted.
To be fair, Alan does have good response tools in the meantime if he wants to wait. Just Cascading Disaster and Hysteria. It's kind of tough for Warrior to play around Hysteria, especially when Conditioning comes online. A lot of the minions just trade twice over each other anyway. Playmaker into Neophyte is going to be the play for GivePLZ. Honestly, doesn't feel that strong against Cascading, but the fact that it's not corruptible and playable in the same turn is the big difference maker.
Getting some strong draws, though. That Strongman for, Twisting Nether, Strongman, Ticketus the turn after, your Charge the turn after. We're really starting to get somewhere. It's just, as you were saying, about surviving the next couple of turns, which Alan can do quite happily here, I think.
Definitely like the Hysteria on the highest health opposing minion. There's only very rare disaster scenarios, and he gets the best one. Oh, GivePLZ with the salty claps.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough at that point. It feels so brutal when Hysteria goes wrong. It feels brutal at the best of times, but that is just so heartbreaking.
I think the average outcome is like a fully clear board because the 2/2,
right.
2/5 might trade into the Lucky Soul, and then the 4/3 survives, and so Alan trades the rest of his minions to get through it. But ending in favor of Alan's board here with the best possible minion is a big yikes.
Yeah, I mean, Trade and Sword Eater, I guess, is what he was looking at. Clawed Machine, of course, sets up for a potentially stronger play next turn, with the +3/+3 buff being very relevant, but 0 tempo on that turn is just too slow.
Yeah. Did the thing.
Uncorrupted, just throwing it down, fair enough. Like, honestly, once your charge comes down, I think you're kind of winning this game anyway.
Yeah, oh, and 3 of the burns were fragments. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
These old bones just keep moving.
Okay. It feels like GivePLZ is about to tank 8 here, and it is fine. All for the cost of board control.
It's fine, but like at the same time, these strongmen start to rack up damage pretty fast. Like 2 of them and you're basically dead.
I mean, if he's lost board, he's just dead, but a couple turns later, right?
Sure.
There's just no win condition for the Warrior if not gaining board. Tamsin into Drain Soul. So powerful.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate, again, that Cascading Disaster is not a shadow spell, but you make do with the rest of this very, very powerful turn here for Alan. Still wiping the board, getting a bunch of cards to use later on. Double School Spirits, super strong, and just more Soul Fragments all the time. He's just in no threat of dying. So GivePLZ has to win board control 100% to get this game under his belt. And to be fair, he has the kind of hand that can do it. This is powerful.
Yeah, it's a strong curve, but it looks like GivePLZ is going to milk the greed a little bit more. A lot of players would just drop the Troublemaker, but he knows that if there's Cascading Disaster, it's possibly corrupted by this point, and he doesn't want to throw the Troublemaker into that. He's trying to bait it out first, and then stick a bigger Troublemaker.
And the cycle of life.
Yeah, and even with Alan870806 here, I think as Alan, you quite happily just throw down a fully corrupted Cascading Disaster after the tap, I suppose. But just because it puts it into the pool for your charge next turn, and then that, I think, will be the nail in the coffin for GivePLZ.
Just too powerful. Free admission, that's the name of the card I would
Armor. Lightly.
Thanks, Alan. And GivePLZ knows what's coming. If you're using this card to get rid of it when you don't even really have to, you expect the charge following turn. But what else can you really do, to be honest? Even here, School Spirits and then the Cascading Disaster as well will guarantee a full board clear. Oh no, sorry, the Cult Neophyte disallows that.
Yeah. That works, right, with your charge. I mean, it doesn't matter because Alan still has the Nether here, but your charge will make it cost 0, and then the Neophyte makes it cost 1. There's no negative discounts here. So, very clean from Alan. GivePLZ.
Keep moving.
No win condition, I'm pretty sure.
They cannot stop.
Not that I'm seeing. Like, Watley off the top, but then you've already played Alexstrasza. He doesn't have Kargath Prime in his deck, of course. I'm seeing very little he can do, and he does throw it down. Alan getting the win on the Warlock is kind of what he was expecting against the Warrior, because it is, especially with his build, a pretty good matchup. But it's such a big win for him. Now, honestly, against the Priest and the Paladin, Priest obviously a fantastic matchup. Paladin, still a new deck that we're seeing with the N'Zoth Paladin, but you'd have to imagine probably not terrible. Like, yes, there's a lot of continual board development from the Paladin that the Warlock may struggle with. However, there's a lot of removal from the Warlock, as we saw in this game, and also big tempo swings that the Paladin can struggle with.
That is true. I will say, though, that I think it matters a lot as to whether Alan is able to burn the right cards with his Ticketus, because the Paladin, if they get to play N'Zoth and Nether has already been used, that can be extremely problematic for Warlock to deal with. You have to imagine that Alan was fine with this happening, though, the matchup of Paladin into Warlock, because Alan considers the Warlock a strong counter queue against Priest. So if the Warlock had to run into an unfavorable, Alan was potentially locking himself in a position where he doesn't have a strong counter queue against the Priest. And based on that knowledge, plus just looking at how the lists line up, I do think Warlock should still have a strong chance here. Not that much burn available for the N'Zoth Paladin either, but it's just cool that we get to see this on stream for the first time today, because this deck has become popular out of almost nowhere.
It does indeed. Yeah, it's a very, very potent deck. Of course, making use of the secret package, most often in the early game. Still a lot of debate as to how you're supposed to shape that in the early game, and also, weirdly enough, as to what the Dragon package is supposed to be, is a point of big contention that I'm seeing. Dragonmore Skystalker making its way into most of the lists, and I do like that. With Red Scale Dragon Tamer in the early game, of course, the Murloc that draws you a dragon. I think you want to have slightly earlier game plays, like from someone this weekend, I can't remember exactly who, we saw Alexstrasza and Ysera in the late game as the only 2 dragons, which of course gives you a lot more late game punch, but when N'Zoth costs 9 as well, I think you're maybe overcrowding that 9 cost spot. So this build for GivePLZ, even with conviction for a bit of extra early game punch and burst damage later on, I'm on board with.
Yeah, that is going to be a very key card here in order to really get over the line against Warlock. I misspoke a while ago, sorry. This is the second time we're going to see the deck on stream today, but that first time honestly did not count. Shaxi had literally nothing to do against the Rogue opener against Possessi, but I do get the feeling the Paladin will get to show some of its strong late game punch because it has that time against Warlock, but it is still running the Sword of the Fallen and Secret Passage package in order to make that early game a bit more amenable. As for Alan's opener, I'd have to imagine this is a full toss. Ogremaster you could think about keeping, but I don't necessarily know if it disrupts that much from GivePLZ. The deck is mostly minions.
I mean, kind of. To be fair, like, all the secrets, Hand of Adal, plus the Conviction as well in the early game. Like, there are cards that it does disrupt, but I guess just looking for the removal game plan is probably where Alan's head is at in the early game. And he's got himself a premium removal-based hand. Scorpid rounds it out nicely just for something proactive to do. But for the moment, at least, he's not even going to have to worry about clearing, because for GivePLZ, this is a very slow hand.
Yeah, while there are 1-drops for GivePLZ, they're not overly threatening, honestly. It's more the fact that they can stick for Hand of Adal. First day of school, not found. Safety Inspector, which I'm still kind of sus of why it's in the list, is not being found either.
Yeah.
Alan just going to go ahead and start shuffling the fragments, though, and does not want to give GivePLZ any potential target for Hand of Adal.
GivePLZ just making use of the broom now. There's obviously some benefit to getting Oh My Yogg down, but with coin still in hand, probably not the time quite yet.
Ooh. Backfire. Raise Dead is interesting for another Scorpid, but I'd be inclined to just take the card draw. Alan has already quite some fragments in the deck. He just wants to make sure he does not run out of removal, and this is absolutely the right pick because GivePLZ just has the curve. Kazakus into Stealth Golem, you'd have to imagine, into Skystalker.
Stealth's pretty good. Spell damage not doing anything in Paladin. I've still got my head in the rogue mindset. So probably +2/+2. Even if you just get 1 buff, it's something.
Yeah. I love the go face plan from GivePLZ as well. He knows Alan is going to trade this for him. I'm not exactly sure what he took on the Golem though, because if this was deal 3 damage, that's decent. But if it's rush and the +2/+2, that's even... Well, not the cleanest. I was gonna say it's not the cleanest trades, right? Because this kind of gives like a clean School Spirits if it were there for Alan, but it deals with the Ogremaster and still leaves GivePLZ ahead on board, so that is a win overall.
And it kind of feels to me here like you're actually supposed to go backfire here. Yeah, I like this a lot because even with Hysteria and Cascading offering you 2 very potent clears, you can just clear enough, right? Going for Drain Soul as you draw it, or the Soulshare, sorry, as the other one that was already in hand. It clears enough, you get more soul fragments in the deck, and you can save your more potent board clears for when there's a scarier board presence.
Now Alan just has to make sure that this hand can survive till turn 9, turn 10, because he has all the stuff he needs, honestly. The Malagos to draw even further, the Jiraxxus for his endgame, and then the Yasharj for a big boar swing when the time comes. He just has to be wary about the Twisting Netherite, because that's earmarked to deal with the N'Zoth board. Only 1 copy.
Interesting. So you can obviously go Cascading Disaster is pretty good on this turn, and then maybe even just tap, because you have a lot of healing in the deck, so you can probably get away with that.
See that. Sorry, he does run 2 copies of Nether, my mistake. So that's huge, right? He can use one of them pre-N'Zoth and one of them post-N'Zoth.
Okay.
Let's get some decent usage out of Hysteria while it's available. I'm not necessarily super familiar with this matchup yet to the point where I know how good Hysteria is on average, but he still just has Disaster in case of emergency.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously now for Alan there are board clears available, but School Spirits just to soften this board up, honestly probably good enough, and just let the rest of it sit there. Like, what is it even really doing?
Yeah, if GivePLZ had some more mana to work with, you'd have to imagine he would want to get Oh My Yogg down.
Wait, did he play Conviction instead of Oh My Yogg there at the end? Doesn't that seem a little surprising?
You mean Reckoning or?
Reckoning, sorry. Yeah, instead of the Oh My Yogg.
It does seem surprising. I'm not sure what he was necessarily trying to play around.
Like, I guess the general answer I give is if you play another secret, they have to pretend it's Oh My Yogg anyway, so you kind of get two uses out of it.
Sure.
But either way, as the Oh My Yogg just makes it a strictly better Twisting Nether. GivePLZ cannot catch a break.
Hello?
This N'Zoth isn't even very good yet. He doesn't have a mech in there. He doesn't have an elemental in there.
He can shuffle back the Oh My Yogg, but you probably Alex at this point.
I mean, this is the point where Alan, the biggest of BMers I've ever seen, this is too far even for him. He will not even go for the emotes here.
Alex-Strasza to face. It's another dragon in the pool that is kind of redundant with the Skystalker, but it uses his mana. It puts a threat on board. He's just seen Cascading Disaster, Twisting Nether. Of course, Alan has the second one, but I mean, GivePLZ knows he's in trouble.
Yeah, just going with N'Zoth. Fair enough. It's okay. You know, it's obviously more pressure on the board than Alex-Strasza, but Alan is just very happy to twisting away the vast majority of this.
Struggling to think of outs for GivePLZ now that we've seen N'Zoth. But if he can somehow stick a board for another Conviction, maybe the damage gets there with Alex over the top. Yeah, he's sending this face every day of the week. No more secrets in the deck as well, so no reason to start with... Wait. Oh, sorry, there's still one more Oh My Yogg according to the deck tracker. Okay, McGurgle. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal to find here, and it's still a board that's getting a little bit scary for Alan, that at the very least has to be dealt with in one way or another. Obviously, you charge into Cascading Disaster doesn't sound especially good, right? Because you're still afraid of the Oh My Yogg.
Five fragments in the deck as well, so Alan could just go Malagos and heal for a lot on average, and also just fill his hand.
True.
And
Very
he
true.
can also play Armor Vendor after that, not overdraw. And he's not under that much pressure after all of that healing.
No, it's very smart. You draw pretty much all of the rest of your deck with this.
Very cool interaction. The first time I encountered this was against Wirer on ladder, and I was playing Mage pre-Refreshing Spring Water nerf, and I had an egg on my face when I realized that there was more healing than I expected.
Yeah, there's no middle ground. You either destroy Wirer when he's playing some garbage deck, or he absolutely deletes you from existence with his janky, weird deck, and then you have to stop queuing out of shame for a couple days.
GivePLZ definitely interested in McGurgle Prime. He's seen both Nethers, and so you probably trade away the Inspector to make more space.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of it goes face, right?
Yeah.
I don't see much reason to trade these down.
I mean, depends what you get, as he gets 2 more McGurgles? Okay.
Hello?
That's pretty insane.
So Alan does need a swing now. I don't think he gets there on pure removal game plan, but the thing is, the McGurgles go in the deck. It's not guaranteed that GivePLZ gets them the very next turn.
Oh man, this is going to be close.
It is. If anything trades, it's the 3-4 and the 1-3.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit valuable to get rid of the 1-attack minions because of the fact that there's Divine Shield on these minions. That makes things slightly more awkward for Alan. But only slightly. Cool spirits.
Ooh, Man, that is interesting, because I was going to say that you kind of want to go Jiraxus Strongman on this turn, because it corrupts the Ticketus, puts a taunt in the way, corrupts the Cascading, and of course sets up for a stronger Yashaj next turn. Double Strongman kind of tempts me into doing that even more, because then that means you go 2 Strongmen this turn, 2 Strongmen next turn with the Yashaj as well.
But there's so much pressure on the board, right?
It's close.
You also just can't trade the Malagos without it immediately dying to the Reckoning.
Good point.
So it looks like Alan is going to go for a double School Spirits play with Tamsin.
Yeah, unless double twist Siphon Soul is better, which it doesn't look like it is, so yeah. I agree.
Almost out of time.
Looks pretty strong to me. Any reason to tap here? I guess why not?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to play an extra card, right? Because
Oh, that's the reason.
don't want to proc the Galloping Savior as the final card, right? But yeah, Sociologist is absolutely huge. You were talking about a swing turn. That is the king of swing turns.
Oi, not a great draw for Give Please. That means he doesn't even get value off this last sword swing.
Yeah, that one's...
He's only galloping in play now.
I mean, you can just kind of have your pick now, right? You could go Jiraxus Double Strongman, I think, is a winning play. Sociologist is a winning play. Cascading, I don't know, like, you can just do whatever you want. I feel like the only real concern is I want to get Ticketus played as soon as possible to try and burn some of those McGurgle primes in the deck.
Yeah, definitely can see that. Militia is looking less strong now that he's just top deck 2 fragments, so there's only 3 left in the deck at the moment. If he just goes Jiraxus Double Strongman, I'm a big fan. It does create the Horsey, but he can kill it with the Drain Soul and Weapon Swing.
Yeah, I mean, you could even just go 1 Strongman instead if you wanted to, right? Either way, it's just absolutely absurdly powerful.
Oh, Give Please. Alex draws onto a minion. Looks like where we're at now.
Yeah, it's strong. It is strong. But given that that is a fully upgraded Cascading Disaster, all he needs to do is check with the Drain Soul, Cascading Ticketus. Looks like it's a very, very likely win still here for Alan against the Paladin, which is, again, a matchup that we haven't explored all too much, and I could have seen going either way, in all honesty.
Honestly, if the Cascading completely misses and leaves up an 8/8, he is still 100% fine.
That's bad, because it means he can't go Yashaj next turn. It's kind of like the one bad 0 mana spell he could have gotten.
Right. But not a huge problem against exactly McGurgle off the top, maybe, but then he still has Militia, worst case scenario, right?
Militia, yeah, McGurgle off the top is the one point where things can go wrong. That's one McGurgle dealt with, but not the second. Okay, so we're still in with a chance now.
Okay.
Can draw it, so I think you just start with the Safety Inspector. Like, you have to get it now, right? Going for Hammer. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it means he doesn't draw a card, doesn't discard a card, sorry, but of course means that he didn't have the potential for McGurgle Prime. Kind of a close call, but he gets rewarded with the perfect draw of Hammer.
But Alan now, even if he just goes Scorpid Siphon Soul, because he keeps top decking fragments, the Militia probably not going to see any play. At this point, there's so few cards in the deck, so it is kind of likely that the Militia doesn't do very much, but it is fine. Alan has removal, he has Yasharge next turn. Even if it was a little bit delayed, and even if the Prime comes off the top, he has a way to deal with those Murlocs with the Cascading Disasters that return to his hand. So GivePLZ is just hoping that the Yasharge is in the bottom few cards.
Even another McGurgle Prime, I don't think gets in there because Alan can literally just go, you charge double Cascading Disaster, Ticketus, and it will, I mean, literally just delete every card remaining in GivePLZ. He has nothing left.
That's just
Truly
funny.
feeling it.
Wow. That's a lot of mana he can cheat this turn.
Oh yeah. Swing once, because I think one of them was only corrupted to level 2 rather than the full level 3. But still, of course, is able to get a full board clear.
Bam, bam, bam. I guess he's saying it's okay even if he leaves something up there. Because like, technically, if he wanted to clear everything, the Scorpion should have gone in the 1/1 first.
Yeah. I mean, again, it doesn't really matter. Like, if he trades the Scorpion first, he does just insta-win the game. I think he pretty much just insta-wins the game no matter what there. So well done by Alan, clearly showing, I think, very good understanding of the different ways you're supposed to approach the different matchups with this control Warlock. He was offered a relatively high-tempo starting hand there with Coin Ogremancer into Ogremancer. Got rid of all of it, looking for the removal, just deleted anything that GivePLZ could play in the early game. And obviously got a little bit fortunate with the transformation of Twisting Nether into Tidal Wave. As we can see in the moment where everything just truly disappeared for GivePLZ. But in the end, just very, very strong gameplay. Even able to take down double McGurgle Prime is not an easy feat.
Triple if you want to count the one that got burned as well.
Sure.
Quadruple if you want to count the second one that But in the grand scheme of things, it obviously means that Alan is super favored to win the entire series off the back of this Warlock now because GivePLZ only has the Priest remaining. Quite honestly, Alan was just saying, if I can get through the Rush Warrior, my Warlock is home free. It made that matchup against Paladin look easy. Not necessarily sure if that's the average pan out because GivePLZ did draw it relatively poorly at the beginning, but I do think Warlock has more than enough tools to get there in the long run. And as for this Priest from GivePLZ, while it is still just unfavored against Warlock because it's Warlock, it has Young.
It does, yeah. I mean, it kind of starts begging the question in terms of the lineup that GivePLZ did leave himself very vulnerable to the Warlock. Like, you're probably not expecting to have, what was it, your Druid band in terms of all the decks you're bringing, but the fact that he didn't bring Rogue, of course, means that he doesn't have the strongest counter to Warlock in the metagame, because despite the fact that I've been a real naysayer of Warlock, I do not believe it to be an especially powerful deck. In the hands of Alan, and with GivePLZ not having very strong counters, it's looking like an absolute terror. And so, as you say, this is definitely not an unwinnable matchup for GivePLZ. But really, you need something pretty drastically to go right in order to get that win. Yogg-Saron can, of course, be huge. And the main other way that I see it a lot of the time is try and build up a big board and then play out your Elucia just to give your opponent a hand that can't clear it. Because otherwise, any board that Priest can make, Warlock just deletes. And then they also delete your deck with Ticketus. And finally, Jiraxxus as the final nail in the coffin is just too much for Priest to overcome.
That's right, it is far too much value off the Jiraxxus hero power and the ability to put the Priest so far in fatigue because of Ticketus that makes the matchup so heavily Warlock favored. Although there are certain Priest stands out there that believe that this is completely doable for Priest. I will say that's most likely off a different build of Priest that what we're seeing from GivePLZ. The Flesh Giant version feels like it has a lot more power in the matchup, being able to get down a couple extra threats. But a Timely Sethic or early Big Dragon can definitely still make that difference.
Yeah, this is shaping out to be a decent hand. I wasn't entirely convinced as to, or certain as to whether it was supposed to be the Proto Drake or the Skeletal Dragon. But the Proto Drake is, of course, just significantly harder for the Warlock to deal with. Even in the face of Siphon Soul, Twisting Nether, something's going to be sticking around. And if you can bank on the fact that you get a nutty 7-drop, hey, this is winnable. GivePLZ is getting himself a good hand right now. Rally on the next turn if this Scorpid dies. Mage Scribe, Proto Drake shortly afterwards. This is as good as it gets.
This is a premium curve. Honestly, for GivePLZ, I was eyeing the Psyche split just because it can do so many powerful things off of what sticks off the Proto Drake. But looking at it again, I absolutely agree. This is just a decent curve for GivePLZ. Even if it just resurrects a Sethic, might still be decent because he has stuff to do for the next couple turns.
It's weird, right? Because it's good. Like, it's decent now, especially as the fact that you're going to place Ogremance, which very possibly makes a bunch of 2/2s. So the the Sethic isn't even going to be rezzed after that. But it does just open up the clear with Hysteria on this turn to delete this board. But I guess you'd say if they have Hysteria, you're fine with them using that on such a small board.
Not you.
Playing at rapid pace, knowing that this matchup does generally go long. I appreciate it a lot, but first Ogremeister is huge, and the fact that GivePLZ has stuck his Scorpid makes all the difference here. Alan is playing this, essentially sending it to his death into the Scorpid just to get enough minions corrupted. He really needs the Cascading Disaster corrupted to deal with the Ogremeister, even if it spawns a minion. But now GivePLZ has played another minion, and so his Cascading can go wrong.
I mean, well, no, because it was upgraded, right, by the... Oh, no, sorry, I'm being an idiot. Yeah, this Ogremeister does make it annoying. But, I mean, the rest of the turn for GivePLZ is looking crazy. Proto-Drake, Ysera. This is as premium as a curve as you can get as Priest.
But look at what Alan's mousing over. School Spirits, even though it does little to this board, he's just looking at Militia next turn.
Right.
Have to imagine.
True. Yeah, I was kind of looking at School Spirits plus Lucky Soul, just to get maximum shuffling into the deck. But I guess it's a similar thing.
He's drawn 1 now, though, but shuffles 2 back. So 5 fragments in the deck right now. A lot of 3/3s from Militia. Honestly, that's not even that good against this shape of board.
Even the Yogg to top it off. The problem is GivePLZ hasn't been playing spells. He's just been playing minions every turn. That makes it so difficult for Alan to answer.
I think the 1/3 should go in the Ogremeister. That's the bigger threat here, right? Because he needs to use these spells to clear the minions. Even if he takes 12 next turn, it's all right as long as he doesn't die immediately. And he can get rid of the Mage Scribe as well immediately for now.
Yeah, it is a huge deal to be able to deal with all of this. And I'm trying to think as to what the response will be from GivePLZ, and I'm kind of coming around to the answer. It's just second Proto-Drake here. You could clear the board, or you could play another guy and just smack them in the face.
Yep, there was some fancy opportunities with like Initiation Condemn for a full clear, but he's just saying no to that. He wants big minions, but unfortunately, it turns out the 7-drop pool is just kind of bad. It feels worse than the 5-drop pool.
It's so bad. There's so many whiffs on it. Yeah, you're looking for like the 7/5 that death rattles into a stealth 7/5. Anything else just feels like it gets dealt with so easily.
Yeah, all it takes is a Soul Shear and a couple trades for Alan to do this. Ideally, he'd want to leave up his Militia, so even if it's on 1 health, that might be worth it if the Militia goes in the 4/6 instead. And he gets to push a little less face damage that way, but I think that's fine. Can also coin out the Scorpid to end.
I mean, I think the one consideration is whether you coin School Spirits, if you can make that work for you. But the numbers just aren't especially clean. You still probably have to end up with the 3/3 into the 4/6.
Wow. And he's just saying, I'd rather tap instead. Holds onto the coin.
Yeah.
For a bit more flexibility later.
And things do feel like they're going to start slowing down now for GivePLZ. He has Ysera, of course, here, but it's not that great, to be honest. It puts a body in play, which is big, but the rest of the cards you get are not very good.
The Initiation is decent, though, especially picking up Focused Will just to put his Militia in a more threatening health range.
Kind of just looking at Twisting plus Strongman now. It allows you to clear a lot of cards with the Armor Vendor or the Spirit Jailer to set up for Malagos next turn.
Definitely worth thinking about, but he might just be holding on to the Nether for a worst-case scenario Yogg, the one that gives him a giant board in case something that bad happens. He does still have a second Nether in the deck, but I think Siphon is absolutely fine here.
Couldn't tell you how far away Yogg is from being active, but I would say probably not that far. He's still played a fair few spells. I'd be surprised if it's more than 3 max, right?
Okay. That's a great raise dead hit, but this could also be a Sethic train turn. Quite a lot of targeted spells, but GivePLZ is just going for the pressure. This has been his plan from the start. And to be fair, he has gotten Alan to a relatively low health total.
It's looking scary. It's looking a little bit scary here for Alan. Again, these proto-drakes are just so awkwardly shaped to kill.
Oh, that draw is enormous. Not only because it can put the Proto Drake back, but it can rip a powerful battle cry minion from GivePLZ's hand. However, if it rips Yogg, that's still a lot of like pressure that Alan would be under.
Yeah, and then of course he's just going to play it again next turn. It's not quite as perfect as it may originally seem, as Baron Geddon is the pick, recently buffed up to 7-7, as opposed, sorry, to 7-5. Is okay if you can find a way to get through this strongman in any other capacity. That's a lot of damage.
Baron Appo, get out of here, Pyro Appo. Okay, but this Dream, just to push more damage, that is super scary now for Alan.
Again, it's so close to lethal. He could have gone Nightmare as well to just be 5 damage off lethal next turn.
Hysteria is extremely clutch though.
Yeah, Hysteria, Ogremancer. That looks pretty sick. Even Strongman as well. Although I guess maybe...
Is it ever Malagos to draw him? I guess he's not scared of dying from 9. Even if he were at like 20, he's more likely to die to Yogg Pyroblast instead of GivePLZ. Cheer?
Yeah, I think probably Soulshare.
And we've seen Alan tap rather aggressively in this matchup. Okay, gonna hold on to it because he's not playing any further cards. I was honestly thinking about Strongman there, but he's probably just trying to deny a big Ysera Awakens.
Well, I'm obviously looking at a Sethic train. On this turn, it's just kind of awkward because unless you get Holy Smite, it's a little awkward to actually even clear the Scorpid.
Right. Starts with Feast, so he has an initiation out to deal with this as well. Oh my gosh!
Okay. Future telling Gia here.
I cast palm reading all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you still obviously have the potential of Apotheosis and Ysera Awakens, because then you would, of course, still heal back up to full. But I'd be surprised to see him go for Wand Maker. I don't especially see what that opens up.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the initiation is too clean here.
Yeah.
And also just sticks a poison minion, which is not the easiest thing in the world for Alan to deal with.
Nether Double Strongman, obviously the strongest individual play that he can make on this turn.
I hate using second Nether before seeing Yogg, though.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So many possibilities.
The poison is actually super annoying here.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Looks like he's going for sheer double spirits, potentially, into Strongman. Is it even worth using double spirits? Yeah, I guess at this point, Priest is hardly building the shape of board that spirits can get through, so might as well. He can fit in the tap. So many fragments in the deck right now. 12, I think?
Yeah, I mean, he's so likely to just draw a whole bunch of them here.
9. 8.
Oh my
7. 6. Okay, that's probably fine. He still has enough in there to make Malagos really good.
That's true, but I mean, still the problem is no Jaraxxus, no Ticketus, still very much in need of finding those 2 cards.
And I see a gold border on this Yogg.
Oh.
I think ideally the Yogg is played in a position where you're behind on board, but it also gives him just the potential to either build a huge board and if there's no Nether win on the spot, or just strictly win on the spot with Rod of Roasting.
Yeah, the initiation is still very, very powerful on this turn. Like, on average, I mean, I wouldn't say on average you're putting more attack on the board, but you're putting more attack than just Yogg on this turn. And given that, like, mind control was fairly weak, random spells was kind of weak as well, I do like this line. As Jiraxxus finally is found for Alan, that is the card you are looking for. And now potentially even coin hero power as well, just to absolutely ramp up the pressure.
Absolutely worth it. That's what he was holding on to the coin for this entire time, the classic play of Jiraxxus coin hero power. And now the Awakens with Smite.
Okay. Apo and Scorpid as well, I guess, is pretty strong.
Oh.
Soul Mirror?
I'm looking at Ray's dead because the mirror feels like the situation you want to use mirror in. I think you'd rather just use Yogg because you expect to be as the priest like ahead on board in order to win the matchup. So I like the Ray's dead. He does pick up another Proto Drake. Of course, there were some whiffs because of the 7-cost cards that died due to the Proto Drake, but felt like the mirror was redundant with what he already has for board clear.
I wonder.
The question is whether Apo is better than just healing here, or just Sethic. Wow. I don't know if I like this. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it makes his board really tough to clear, because now obviously the weapons don't do anything. Wow, even Flash Shield as well. Not bad.
Right. Oh, Renew is a huge pickup. So
this is
the Asharj only has one disaster on it, right?
Yes, it does, correct.
And it doesn't have Ticketus, which is the other big deal, because Alan has drawn way more than GivePLZ under the assumption that he should be able to win with Ticketus, offsetting the fatigue. But if he goes the Asharj first, that's one less possible proc off Ticketus.
I mean, he's drawn so much faster. There's 5 fragments in the deck. He only has 4 real cards left in deck.
Shall I destroy you?
And obviously this board is nowhere near as threatening as it appears. But at the same time, it's kind of more threatening than it appears, because even though it's just a Sethic and a 1/3 left on board, a Sethic is trouble. That can really go wrong. If they're getting powered Fortitude or Psych Split, things can go very wrong.
Yeah. Buffing up the taunt from GivePLZ, even knowing it's going to die next turn, has accomplished quite a bit for now. Oh, is he going to Vulgin the Scorpid? Because, oh, that's terrible, right? But then if you leave the Ogremancer just alive to a Scorpid, then the Sethic Train can go off anyway. GivePLZ is in such a good position.
And now the Sethic just does its business. I mean, maybe you just stop there and go Plagued Proto Drake again with double Apo plus the Powered Feast next turn. This is still a hand that can potentially get there. GivePLZ winning the matchup that is just seen as nigh on impossible to win. And Alan, in a tough spot, finally gets the Ticketus, and I guess you just have to corrupt it with Twisting Nether. Like, Malagos just draws too much at this point. You don't want to enter Fatigue that quickly.
Yeah, it is just going to fatigue him. There are more spells than minions left in the deck. And he is leaving. Oh no, the strongman on board. GivePLZ can push minimum 12 this turn with all the buff spells.
Oi, oi, oi.
Does he just start Renew to look for immediate lethal outs? I guess there's not many with only 1 mana remaining.
Yeah, I think you just play all the buff spells on this turn. Pray it gets you to lethal, and if it doesn't, you slam that Yogg and pray that that can do the final little bit you need.
Some consideration to taking down the 6/6, but he actually can't maneuver Zyrella in a nice way because the only healable target is Alan's face at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is pretty smart. Because the strongman will just heal back up to full afterward.
Yeah, I mean, the ordering isn't great, right? I kind of would have liked to have just not seen the Wand Maker on this turn, because then you could fit in Apotheosis as well, which is a big deal.
That's fair.
I mean, it's a good idea. I just think it could have been slightly optimized.
Okay. He has to do that to stay alive, although Alan would much rather Ticketus, obviously. Just can't afford it. Now he's hoping for a target that Tamsin Dreamsoul can deal with, and it can. It's not the Yogg, though, which is a big deal.
It's not the Yogg. That was a big 50-50. I mean, I guess it was good for GivePLZ in a way, though. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does just die, so you would much rather have the Yogg. So a big outcome there for GivePLZ.
I think it's time.
Not tempted by Ogre Psych Split?
I don't think... Wait. There's still one Cascading Disaster, so leaving the Tamsin on board is iffy.
Yeah.
So if it's not Yogg, I think it's Holy Smite, Ogremancer, potentially even Apple. Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, the problem is, like, Tamsin doesn't proc the Cascadings, right? Because it's not Shadow. It's just the fact that you have a 50-50 to draw it here, given that 4 of the cards are fragments, and then you just go Ticketus into the Cascading.
Yeah.
But now, obviously, if you play the Cascading, it summons 2 2/2 skeletons, so maybe you just miss completely on the skeleton, on the Ogre-mancers.
Well, the average outcome is 1 dies and a 2/2 survives, which is not terrible. He's still ahead on board.
Sure, yeah. I mean, he's not dying, obviously, yet. Well, not guaranteed dying, I will say, with the Apotheosis, as GivePLZ again is just delaying, leaving Yogg for that final push rather than tempoing it out early.
Oh, that's huge. Can't quite VT the Ticketus, which is also very relevant. But because the Yasharge now is going to regenerate the Cascading Disasters, which Alan absolutely wants, the fact that there's Ogre-mancers once again messes with the Disasters a little bit. Okay, GivePLZ was waiting for this to play the Yogg into, you'd have to imagine.
It's the big push. Alan probably incentivized to trade first into the Sethek, just because double cascading is, of course, not guaranteed to clear, given that we're in the same problem of... Oh, no, wait, if you play it in this order, I think now it does guarantee clear, right? Just because, yeah, you'll be left with, at worst, an Ogremancer. Mm-hmm. Very nicely done.
Ooh.
Oh my
okay, but for Alan, just no more minions here. I'm pretty sure he's ready to go. Fair enough for the Yogg.
Oh, of course it comes down to this. Of course, after all these years.
Not sure what not taking an extra 2 breakpoints helps for Alan, but it doesn't really matter in the long run. It's all about this Yogg.
Let's go.
Okay, random spells, evocation for free.
It's usually not the best one,
Condemn. Draw is not good here. Immolation, not that good.
Yeah,
He can
that's not it.
Sermon for buffs, but it's just not it.
Yeah, really obviously wanted Rod of Roasting. Steel minions maybe would have got there, or of course... Well, I mean, even just chomping up all the minions and gaining the stats wouldn't have got there because of the Cascading Disaster that was held onto by Alan very cleverly. It's just not there.
Immo Condemn doesn't even deal with the smaller Ticketus. He can Serpent Shrine Portal it, I suppose.
Great.
Yeah, great. You can play Plagiarize.
Oh, stealth.
But there's still one more disaster for Alan.
Yeah, I mean, just the
Well played.
Cascading Disaster alone will wrap this one up.
If he's essentially throwing it down, Alan just going over it once, twice. What are the rogue secrets? None of them like disrupt spells, but they can potentially give please a cascading disaster. Is Alan okay with that? Pretty sure yes, because he can just play all his well, not all the zero costs you don't want to give.
Yeah, that's like the one way that things go wrong. It's actually a pretty decent card here. I mean, you can just go Cascading Disaster, and then I think you just win the game still. He's, of course, going to be ticking them off one by one. He could play out the Lucky Soul, I guess. Oh, no, wait, it's corrupted, so it draws a card, so you don't want to play it. So maybe you play the Scorpid.
It's just hero power, I think.
Yeah,
you don't want to give please a Scorpid, potentially.
No, you're absolutely right.
Just one more hit next turn, and then Fatigue can do it.
You can go Psych Split into fully corrupted one and then steal a minion, but he knows it's just not getting there. Alan taking the series 3-1, a clean 3-0 sweep with his Warlock, only losing the first game of the series, and truly transcending beyond this mortal realm there with that victory. And he should feel good. That's a big, big win for him. He was still somewhat scared of the relegation zone, but another week through to the quarterfinal does definitely go a long way to remedy that. And with a very cool series, like it's not often you're going to see Warlock 3-0 an opponent.
Absolutely. Well played from Alan in terms of macro and micro game plan. You were seeing him hold on to at least one another for a very long time, whether it's for the Yogg board or specifically the big Ogre Mancer push from GivePLZ. Also just having that Yasharge at the very end game, which GivePLZ in turn was saving the Yogg for. You can see that this matchup has very specific thresholds and points of where one deck peaks and spikes